All right, we are here and we are live, and we are here to talk about a couple movies tonight. VHS, and man, am I excited! My main man is back here, Adam. This is honestly, if you asked me in the last year and a half, the thing that I have been waiting for the most is to do this again with you, my friend. I've been going through these clips of us, and been dropping them here and there on here, and we got some camaraderie when it comes to talking some film. So I'm excited to dig into this today. How you been, my man?
I've been good, busy as usual, but I've been wanting to do something like this as well.
Awesome.
So it's nice. The flattering things you say are definitely appreciated.
Well, me loving movies so much, I need every inch of it, and you give me this whole spectrum. And you know what I thought about it today? I was thinking of this movie that I know that you enjoy, Lawrence of, I don't want to mispronounce. I think it's Arabia. The vast landscapes of beauty in that movie. That's you in these movies, my man. And honestly, these ones that we're going to talk about here in a little while, really add to that. But before we get started, last night we on the show we covered Joaquin Phoenix, and I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but you saw this movie recently.
Soldiers of the 5th Regiment.
Right? You saw it?
Yeah, I saw that in the theater, yes.
What was your opinion of this movie? Waiting to hear.
Okay, so the movie itself, when we talk about the production, was very well done. Was it historically accurate? No. I mean, there was some historical accuracies in it. I mean, I shouldn't say it was completely inaccurate, but this is the same thing I've gone back to when Michael Mann made Ali.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to make a movie in 2 or 3 hours of someone who's been, that large of a historical figure. You can't cram all that stuff into a few hours because you skip through things. You take things that happen in certain years and put them in other places that they didn't really happen in. The movie itself was good. I thought the performances were fine. Obviously, it was shot well. I thought the score was fantastic. Martin Phipps, actually, I believe, did most of that score, if I'm not mistaken. And he knocked out of the ballpark with that.
You're absolutely correct. It is.
Yes, it was a good movie, but it obviously has its flaws, and I can see. And I knew once I saw it, I'm like, I know exactly what the critics are going to say about it. But Joaquin Phoenix himself, he was fantastic in the film. But yeah, it was good. It was enjoyable to watch. But some of them I'm looking through, and I'm like, that didn't happen when that happened, or that, or this did happen, but not in that year. It didn't happen that way. That kind of thing. So.
It's kind of, well, I don't know if you, hopefully you didn't, but that last Elvis movie that came out, that really leans towards, is this a little bit more of a stretch, which I'm okay with, as long as the performances are good. Is there another Joaquin Phoenix performance or two that you enjoy quite a bit?
I enjoy a lot of his stuff. I think, I don't know if you guys talked about this in your last podcast. Do you remember, I'm trying to think of what it was called. It was
Who's that?
One with him and Nicole Kidman. Oh, To Die For.
That was the first one I picked last night.
That was the first one you picked
one, because that was the first one I saw in the movie theater. I mean, I think I was like 14, and he's great in that movie. And that movie shot by Gus Van Sant excellently too.
Yeah, so I've always liked Nicole Kidman, but that was one of his earlier films. I mean, that was what I'm not sure exactly what year that came out, but. That was one of his early ones. Obviously, he was great, and he really blew up in Gladiator. He played a great, just sadistic version of Commodus, and he was great in Joker. He's been in other films, even movies that weren't good.
He's good.
So great. Like I said, if the movie itself doesn't need to be good for him to be good.
No, not at all.
He's definitely a pretty domineering screen presence.
We didn't really talk about it too much last night, but I think about his brother, and honestly what he did when he was around, and you think about what he could have continued to do Yacht Queen, I think, kind of fills those type of shoes. Performances from her to the master, you know what I mean? Like different, all over the place type of stuff. But that's
Yeah,
what makes
I
it
think
connect.
I mean, and it's maybe I've told this to you before, but I think River Phoenix, if he would have lived, probably could have put out some of the best stuff we've seen in our lifetime. You know,
Well, we could sit
I think
for hours.
he was on that path.
Me and you could
So,
probably sit for hours and think of movies that have come out that he could have been in, that maybe even would have made the movie better than a great performance by the actor in the movie. You know what I mean? But today you have brought a couple classics here to the forefront here. Let's start with the very first one you decided to bring, The Zone of Interest. This movie came out in 2023. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
well, it came out in 2023. It didn't come out, I believe, in North America until early 2024. I saw it in the theater. I want to say it was February or March, one of those months I saw it in the theater. And it was one of those I saw a trailer for when I was seeing another movie, and I was like, oh, that one looks pretty intriguing. And that the subject matter of the Holocaust and Nazi Germany has always interested me. So I was like, I wanted to go see this film. And I think to really, it's unfortunate now that it's out of theaters. Hopefully it goes back in theaters one day, because it's, to experience it fully, I think you really need to be in the theater, because I'm just going to kind of go through my experience with this. This is the best way I can explain it. So the zone of interest, the title itself refers to what the Nazis referred to as, I think, like a 40-mile or something like that area around Auschwitz, the concentration camp of Poland. So that's why it's called the zone of interest. And the movie, it basically goes, it's almost filmed like a documentary. It was made by a guy named Jonathan Glazer, who there's not a lot of things he's done on the Hollywood side, the film side, but like he's actually directed music videos and stuff. He directed a Jamiroquai video, Virtual Insanity. Like he directed that video, made that. Yeah, so I mean he's made I think he's made a couple other music videos and stuff too. But
you ever see his movie Sexy Beast with Ben Kingsley? If you have not, from 2000, it's a mobster movie with Ian McShane. It's a really good movie, but continue.
So he made this movie, and it was it's the most creative way of making this type of movie, I think. I mean, it's you see Holocaust movies and you see, like, documentaries and things like that, and a lot of them focus on what the actual victims went through, what the perpetrators did to them. This kind of like attacks it from a different front, not to use a war term, but this doesn't really shock your visual senses. So I think the best thing you can do before you see this movie is see a movie like Schindler's List, for instance. So I'm sure most people watching this have seen Schindler's List. You see up front, right in your face, the atrocities that these people committed to the Jewish population in Europe in the late 30s and early mid 40s. So you see it up front, the brutality of it all. Okay. So you need to have that in your head to watch a movie like this, because what this movie does is it attacks your auditory senses more than anything else. When this movie starts, so I'm sitting in a theater, okay, and the lights go down and it just says zone of interest, and then the screen goes black. And for 3 full minutes, I'm not exaggerating, it's 3 full minutes, you hear just strange music and strange noises, and it's kind of loud, it gets louder, and it makes you very, very uncomfortable. And it's supposed to make you uncomfortable. And it keeps going. And like, I can see, like, if that kept going for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes as a form of torture, because it just kind of like, you're uncomfortable. So you're sitting there by yourself in a large theater and just a black screen with those noises going on. And it's not people, it's just, noises, it was musically made, but like the noises themselves are they just make you feel like, really, like, man, I don't want to sit here, I want to get the hell out of here. So, and then it kind of fades into, like, you hear birds chirping softly, and it also, you see you're in the woods with the family here, and it's almost like you feel a big sense of relief, like you're out of that. But that's kind of what he's going for here. So the movie itself is filmed so differently because it's filmed almost like a documentary where you were like a fly on the wall watching this family. The family is the Haas family. Now, Rudolf Haas was the commandant of Auschwitz. Not to be confused with Rudolf Hess, who was another Nazi official, but this is Rudolf Haas. So, and he is in charge basically of Auschwitz and all of its operations. So his family actually has a house. He built a house and a life for themselves right next to the camp. And when I say right next to the camp, I mean right on the other side of the damn wall. I mean, it is right there. So throughout the movie, you see kind of how they live their lives. But that's what it is. There's not much of a plot to this. This is not a movie that's just going to grab you the first few minutes going, man, this is going to be one hell of a story or a thriller or something like that. It is not that at all. It is, you see what these people are like in real life, their mannerisms and their indifference. And that's kind of what Jonathan Glazer, I think, was going for here, was he wanted people to see how indifferent these people were and their complicity with their complicity of the events that happened. And so like the slide you're looking at right now is his wife Hedwig. I mean, they're just going, the color you see in the movie is all within their
little world.
Yeah, it's in their little world, their living quarters and everything. And they've built a life there. And it's a normal life. And so you look at these people, and these are normal people. These kids are normal kids. These kids don't know any better what's going on, you know? And she, to me, is the most chilling character in the film. Because, you know, there's scenes of her trying on like fur coats and rings and lipstick and things like that of people who are Jewish prisoners in Auschwitz. It's like it's her own personal, you know, department store. They're bringing things in. She's just, you know, trying things on, looking at herself in the mirror. Do I look good in this? Do I look good in that? And just thinking that's what kind of makes you think of it. Like how do these people like just dismiss what's going on so much? And actually take what these people have and it's used as your own. And if you don't like it, I don't like this. Oh, I'll keep that. I like that, you know, and knowing what's going on the other side of the wall. Now, a lot of people in that area may not have known exactly what's going on or to the extent of what's going on, but I'm under the assumption, they never say, but I'm under the assumption that she does. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, she's a commandant's wife. I'm pretty sure she has a good idea what's going on living next to it as well. And she just doesn't really, you know, care at all. And they're both portrayed as pretty cold characters. They're not like mean, evil, spirited. They don't seem like that. They seem like parents, and they seem like they're just trying to get along and do the best they can. He's obsessed with being the best commandant he can to do his job the best he can. Not one of those I'm just following orders people like you saw like in the Nuremberg trials. He was literally out there saying, I want to make this the most efficient camp I can. And there's a scene in the movie where he's talking with people towards the beginning, different Nazi officials, about how do you make this more efficient? How do we get these people from here to here in this amount of time? How do we fit more people in here? How do we get this machine rolling as quickly as possible? It's like you're having a work meeting on Monday morning or something. It's just like that. And they're just talking like this, and they're just sitting here like looking at this going, yeah, that looks good. You know, it's very nonchalantly. And they're in the meantime, they're talking about murdering, you know, 500,000 people at a time, you know, or not at a time, but like, you know, here and there, it's like, it's nothing to them.
Well, it's the empathy to the situation, you know, it's the empathy to know, you know, and I know, because you're talking about Schindler's List, the atrocities that seeing the beauty next to it is just so different.
It is. But here's what really gets you. So you see shots of them living their lives, you know, however they are in their garden, their porch, you know, there's her trying on the dress I was talking, or the coat I was talking about. So they, and if you notice in here too, they use all natural light in this movie. They did not use any studio lighting in this movie whatsoever. It was all natural. So everything you see is au naturel. And the cameras they use were all static shots. So you see straight on of what they are in frame. You don't see a lot of pans. You don't see a lot of camera movement or anything like that. It's pretty much straight static shots, like they're filming pieces of a documentary. He filmed over like 800 hours or something of footage.
Wow.
And whittled this down to, I mean, he has kept filming and everything. So he did, but whoever edited this, I'm not sure if it was him, whoever edited it, but they did a great job getting this down.
Paul Watts is the gentleman who edited the movie, but did a great job.
he did do a great job of getting the footage he needed to convey what Jonathan Glazer was.
You're talking about 800 shots, yeah.
Dude, I mean, yeah, it was a ton of it. So, but anyway, what I was talking about before was what it really gets you is you see them living their lives, and the other side of that wall, in the background, you'll see stuff like smoke slowly coming out of a chimney, or you hear a little pop in the background, like a gunshot here, or a person screaming a little bit. Just very faint, but you hear those things. But those things don't get to you. This is why I say you need to see something like Schindler's List, because you don't understand maybe what is exactly going on behind that wall until you see something like Schindler's List and realize that's what's going on back there. Because this movie never takes you into the camp. You never go into the camp at all. You're just outside the whole time. And that expression on his face right there, that is basically him the whole movie. It is cold, calculating. You don't get a sense of like, this person is downright evil or doing evil things, but they are. And the most emotion you see from anyone in this movie is when they figure they might have to be relocated because he's doing such a good job. He may be transferred to another camp to do kind of the same thing there. And his wife is like, I'm not doing this. We built a life here. This is where the hypocrisy comes in and the irony. She has the audacity to be like, we've built a life here and they can't just take that away from us. And I'm like, what do you think you've done to 6 million people? Like, you've taken their lives away from them, and even way worse. So that's kind of where the disconnect is. But you don't get a sense of like these people are flat out evil. I caught myself at one part of this movie. They were around the dinner table. He was talking about possibly being transferred to his kids, telling them, hey, we may have to move. We may have to do this. And for a few moments, I was kind of feeling bad. I'm like, I kind of feel bad for these kids, and they got to get up. And then I caught myself. I'm like, dude, seriously, I'm feeling bad for these. It's like, but that's how good Glazer did this. You end up catching yourself feeling bad for it. So it doesn't get like the banality of it all. It gets you to where these people are still human, and they have human emotions, do human things, even though they're committing awful atrocities. So there's things around it that we don't often confront as people who, weren't there, or people who study the Holocaust. We just know of how awful things were. And this kind of more deals with like their just lack of empathy and just being able to turn a blind eye in being complicit to all this. I don't think it does. You don't see a lot of townspeople or anything like that. She has some friends during the movie, his wife, that come over and they chit chat and gossip and they laugh about this and that. But, and they kind of know what's going on as well, but like they don't really get into the townspeople around there. So the townspeople may not know exactly, like I said, what's going on, but the people close to him do. And those are the people you interact with in this film. So it doesn't just show like any ignorance or like anybody being naive to the situation. It kind of shows them just ignoring their role in this and being complicit in when something awful is happening. And this movie just kind of rolls along with their days in their lives, months in their lives. It's nothing flashy. One of the things that he also did in this film, which I thought was pretty cool, was there was a Polish girl who would go out at night. Now, she wasn't She wasn't Jewish at all. She was actually a girl who would go out on her bicycle at night and plant food and apples and things on the construction sites outside the camp, so the prisoners would have something to eat. And this girl actually existed in real life. Jonathan Glazer actually met her when she was, I want to say she was like 90 years old. She's passed away since then, but he met her and because he was trying to interview some people who were there at the time. And there were, obviously it was so long ago, there weren't that many left. So, but she was one of them, and she was kind of a part of a partisan group that tried to help these Jewish people any way they could without being caught, obviously. So they filmed her scenes with like military grade infrared camera. So she looks like a film negative that's the way she's lit, because they use no natural light in this movie. So that was filmed almost in that pitch dark. So in order to see her, they had to film her this way. And it kind of shows like a reverse like if you see a film negative, it's a reverse of what you see in real life.
Hmm.
It's like you're seeing everything here in the atrocities in these people's lives and the way they look at things. Now you're seeing the reverse of someone who was partisan trying to help them.
Hmm.
So it was pretty neat the way they did film that. And then during the film, they go back, all of a sudden out of nowhere, you'd hear like those, like the weird music and noises that take you out again. The screen would go blood red for a minute because it's just like you're just going along, everything's kind of peaceful, and it's like kind of kicking you in the face saying, hey, don't forget what's going on here. But I really think they did they did this in a very creative way that I haven't seen before. That even if it's boring to a lot of people and it doesn't, pique people's, like I said, it's not something that's going to hold your interest if you're not interested in something like this. But like, it's not going to, but like, it definitely is a great way of getting a point across and it sticks with you. So without showing a lot of things that are horrifying to the eye, like I said, it sticks with you. And it's a very ambiguous ending. It ends in around 1943, so it doesn't like you don't see Rudolph Haas get his comeuppance, which he did get hanged eventually, but it kind of just because that's not the point of the whole movie. The point of the whole movie is how these people acted during these times, while what they were doing, and just their just indifferent nature about something so awful they could be doing to people, and they just really didn't care. All they cared about was their own lives and like going up in the Reich and basically making the best lives they can for themselves at the expense of millions of others.
Let me play you this clip right here, and maybe you can give a little bit of what you thought of this clip right here.
Yeah, so that was and that actually that house was reproduced for that film, but it was produced basically to the T. And so that really like what you see out there is really what their house and garden and yard and everything looked like. But that's the thing, like you watch a movie and you see them, their mannerisms and stuff, and he's constantly thinking and plotting and things like that, just thinking, how can I make this better? You don't see, like I said, you don't see the banality, you don't see the evil behind this, just the absolute sinister character. But in shots like that, maybe not that one in particular, but different shots, you'll see like or just hear things in the background happen. Rudolf Haas also brought like he was known to like rev engines of certain things like motorcycles or like jeeps or whatever they had there. He would rev them. He would have people rev them up so you could basically filter out like screams and different gunshot sounds and things like that. And in the movie, they do that a bit too. I didn't catch that until the second time I watched that. And I did notice throughout the movie, they were revving certain things and they were doing that because of that reason. So, but like, if you look here too, in this shot, that's all natural lighting in there.
That's where I think the movie is its gold is that cinematography. It's like it makes it feel so hollow and so empty. But as you stated, it's the green too because the shots are full on. I enjoy this movie quite a lot. As a director, you're always looking for something different. As you brought up just a little while ago with, let's say, To Die For. It's a different shot style movie. It's almost like they're being interviewed. Where you said this movie, it feels like it's a documentary, but it's not a documentary. But just sometimes the way the shooting is felt.
Yeah, like a scene like this, for instance. I mean, this is a straight-on static shot. Camera's not going to move, and you're looking at these people, and these are all expressionless people. They seem emotionless,
and the color is like white.
It reminds me of it reminds me of like watching Barry Lyndon.
Yeah,
it's
great.
It's like a modern version of something like that.
That is excellent. Great comparison.
But yeah, it's definitely a movie I think everyone should watch. It's not terribly long, so it's not a movie you really have to invest a ton of time in. But like I said, it gets its point across. It's very interesting in the way it was filmed. It was a very interesting idea. I mean, it was adapted from the screenplay was adapted from a book that was written. But it was really it was pretty true to the book. There was a couple different things that they changed in there. Like they actually made it, the book itself actually had a story and a subplot going on, and this kind of just said, screw all that. We want to show this because this is the point I want to make.
Mm.
And I thought, for a guy who's not a very well-known director, and obviously his budget here wasn't very large, he did a stellar job of getting, across the point he wanted to get across to everybody. And like I said, I haven't seen any critics or anybody who's really panned this movie at all. Like I said, if there's anything you can say about it, it's hard to hold some people's attention who have difficulty, who have short attention spans. And but like I said, if you haven't seen something like Schindler's List, you're not it's not gonna affect you what's going on in the background like it would someone who has seen that, who knows like stuff about Auschwitz and the Holocaust and everything that really did happen or is affected by it. But the people who have seen that and know what is going on behind that wall, those little things that they do in this movie in the background really do affect you.
Yeah, I mean this was a great pick that you picked. Like I stated, I think it was one of the best films that came out last year. I mean, he obviously deserved the accolades that the director Glazer deserved. But again, really good pick. Really good pick. Before we move on to our second pick, give us just a couple sentences why you love this movie right here.
That's funny. I see. That's why he was lying on his back in his coffin.
Come on, there is only one admitted killer here, and it is certainly not me.
Got to talk about Clue.
Okay, well, first of all, I can't give you a couple sentences of why I love that movie.
Well, I was going to say a couple sentences, but go on forever.
That movie is a part of my being, and it is. Yeah. That movie is probably one of the most perfectly cast movies. I don't care for comedy or whatever. It's one of the most perfectly cast movies ever. And everybody in that film just absolutely blows their part away, man. Like, and it is such creative writing. And it's one of those movies where every time you watch it, you catch something different that's funnier. It's like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Or if you did notice it, you didn't notice how funny it was until you watch it again. And then you're like, yeah, that was pretty good. Like, oh, I didn't notice he said this, or look at the way Mr. Green does this, or sits down or stands up, or all of a sudden changes his tone of his voice or something. It's anything like that. And it sucks now that like I just saw Martin Mull there. It made me sad because he passed away earlier this year. But Leslie Ann Warren, you don't see her in a lot of movies. But if this is the only movie that you ever see her in, holy crap, man! Like, she was probably my favorite character this whole. Well, besides Wadsworth, like, she was probably my favorite character this whole movie.
You bring up Martin Mull, and a couple weeks ago we did a Michael Keaton breakdown, and of course, I know you love Mr. Mom and Martin Mull in there. The '80s have such a vast, great comedy catalog. I mean, you could go with The Airplane, you can go with The Caddyshack, or you could go with the Mr. Mom, and you're going to be really having a good time in whatever you're doing in the '80s in comedy. And that's why when I first met you, Clue was like one of the first things you love to talk about. And that's a great movie for many different reasons. I mean, Tim Curry, who you stated, I mean, Christopher Lloyd. I always, even doing research before we came out, seeing Michael McKean, I mean, every time I see him, but great performances all around.
It is. I had this discussion a while back of, who, like, I thought who had I shouldn't say worst performance because there were no bad performances. I thought like Mrs. White character was probably the least funny, I guess, but she had such funny parts, in it as well. So there was no absence of like any hilarity out of any of those characters. Even like Lee Ving as Mr. Body, it was like there were some parts that were that's kind of hilarious, Yvette, just some of her mannerisms and like looks she gives and stuff like that. It's just with everybody. So it's just a brilliant movie, man. And I was thinking about that again there, Dick. I watched This Thing, and Eileen Brennan's in that, and it's so funny how different that character is. Because when I grew up, I just knew her. This is Mrs. Peacock, Yeah. Then you watch in a movie like that, and you're like, oh, that's Eileen Brennan with Paul Newman. You're like, yeah, I like her better as Mrs. Peacock. So that's Mrs. Peacock.
Sadly, I mean, I hope it doesn't come to fruition, but there's been rumors of remakes. Like, this isn't a movie that should be touched.
No, there's been rumors of that for a while, but I don't know if I think that anything.
I hope they don't. You know, that's always.
I don't either. Like,
Maybe we'll
that's one
put
of
them
those.
out there in the air right now. It's not. Let's hope it doesn't happen.
No, I really don't screw with it. There's no need to.
No.
They've remade enough things. They don't need to mess with one of my favorites, or Mr. Mom for that matter.
Oh no, never.
I don't think you can make Mr. Mom nowadays anyway, but it's
no. It would be something completely different than whatever that original Mr. Mom was. Again, more great performances in the side in my Mr. Mom aside from Michael Keaton in that movie too. But let's talk about your second movie that you brought to the table here, and that is Notorious. This is Mr. Claude Rains. Since we've went together to see Casablanca about a year or so ago, honestly, Claude Rains is shot right up to the top of my list of just awesomeness, just all around. Awesome.
You're proud to invite me.
We both invite you, Mr. Devlin.
We'll see that our guest is fed, my dear, and amused. You know what? Oh, excuse me.
Tell us a little bit about Notorious.
So, going back to Claude Rains 1 second, that guy has probably one of the smoothest deliveries, period, in Hollywood history, no matter what he's doing. That guy, in that scene right there, just the way in the end he's like, excuse me. Like, this is like, that's the way he says that. It reminds me of like Adolphe Menjou or something like that, like in the silent era, the way he like lights cigarettes. Like everything the guy does is just cool. But anyway, so Notorious, you bring up Casablanca. A good thing about Notorious, or something similar to Casablanca, the way it's lit is very similar. And you know me, I'm big on like lighting. So they light this film in a very similar fashion as the Casablanca, probably because they realized if you light Ingrid Bergman that way, she could be reciting the Bible or God knows anything in an encyclopedia, and you're going to listen to it and watch it because she just looks so cool that way. But this movie was made 1940, or was released in 1946 as an RKO movie. And this was when Hitchcock was really hitting his stride, really starting to hit his stride. He made several movies before this, silent films, and he made, handful of them in the 30s. But when he started getting around the 1940s into the 1950s is really when you start getting to classic Hitchcock films. And this was one of them that was a little bit different from his later thrillers, like Vertigo, Rear Window, things like that. This one was kind of a combination thriller, romance thriller film. And as you see, it stars Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman, and Claude Rains. And Cary Grant, by this time, had pretty much already established himself as one of the best leading men in Hollywood as well. So pairing him with Ingrid Bergman made a lot of sense. And Ingrid Bergman was still, she was coming off her stardom from Casablanca just like 4 years prior to that. So it was a good pairing. They had good chemistry on the screen. But this movie's basically about it's along the lines of, I chose this one because it has some similarities in the subject matter to The Zone of Interest. So this was actually takes place in post-war America and then Brazil, where some Nazis escaped to South America, as we all know. And her father in this film was basically, he was an American citizen, but he was accused of treason and convicted of treason on the Nazis' behalf. So he was jailed. So there's Nazi war criminals living down, like I said, in South America, and they're trying to catch some of these guys. And Cary Grant's character works for the government, and Ingrid Bergman is the perfect person to kind of help infiltrate this Nazi ring down there, because her father was part of their ring, and they probably assume that she has no sympathies for the American government because of what they're doing to her father now. So he's trying to recruit her to go down there and infiltrate this ring, get as much information as they can to bring all the rest of these guys to justice. Now, and that's who Claude Rains plays, one of the characters. His name is last name is Sebastian. He's one of the Nazi perpetrators. But anyway, so this movie, he tries getting her ready for this mission down there. but they kind of start falling in love and stuff at the same time. So it complicates matters. So when he goes on the mission, she has to actually go and start a relationship with Claude Rains, and she ends up marrying him, and it causes a lot more tension between her and Cary Grant. So a lot of their encounters are very cold after that because he's very jealous. And he's trying to hide it because he's a very smooth character in this movie, as Cary Grant always is in any movie. He's a very smooth character, but this one in particular, he's kind of like cold and smooth, very quiet, very, as a matter of fact, he tries to act like nothing bothers him. He puts on this whole facade, but he's really in love with, Ingrid Bergman's character, and it bothers the living hell out of him that she has to do all this to get what they need her to get. It on the thriller side, it's a great thriller. And we all know Hitchcock is the master of suspense. So there's some parts in this film that are very, 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 very suspenseful, and the way he films it is very suspenseful, because not only does he make the dialogue and the plot itself something that's very intriguing, but the way he shoots things, the way he puts his music behind stuff, the way he zooms, and the way he moves a camera around. He's very good at that. The way he cuts films, like I said, he knows how to make a thriller. It's the one thing I wish this movie did. I think they kind of hastily pushed the romance part at the beginning. They need to develop that a little bit longer. This movie was about an hour and 40 minutes long, and I really think it needed to be about 2 hours longer, probably 2 hours, 10 minutes or so. It needed an extra half hour to it, because they really needed to develop the love portion better of this film to really feel what Cary Grant was going through, what she was going through when she was kind of undercover. I think they really needed to push that more and develop that slowly rather than pushing it quickly like they did, because it did feel like it was all, the love story was thrown together very hastily before she went off on her mission, so to say. Right there you see Claude Rains' mother. This is kind of a precursor to Psycho in a way, because she was kind of a very controlling, domineering mother to Claude Rains. So now obviously it took it in a way different direction in Psycho, but it kind of had those same themes to it.
I see it.
But this scene right here, this is a scene where they descend a staircase. Hitchcock can drag out descending a staircase for a couple of minutes and make it the most suspenseful thing ever in the world. The one part during a party, and this is when the famous crane shot zooms in from the top of the party. You come down and you see kind of like Ingrid Bergman, and she comes into focus, and then in her hands she's holding a key, and his key is the key part of the scene, and it's just a key. But somehow, he's made an object like that, so poignant and so just absolutely necessary to the plot of the film, and builds such suspense around that scene in the wine cellar. And then when Claude Rains finds out what's going on, and from that point forward, that's when you're on the edge of your seat going, what is he going to do? How are they going to react to this? What's Cary Grant going to do? But like I said, along with the beginning of the film, and they kind of force along the love story too much. I think they kind of hastily wrapped this up a little too quickly as well. Like I said, it could have been a little more time. There's movies, I was talking to someone about the movie Babylon that came out, last year, 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
I thought that movie you probably could have taken 20 minutes off that movie and made that movie better. This movie is the exact opposite. I think you could have added about a half hour to this, because if you're watching a thriller, you don't really mind the runtime if you're interested, intrigued, or if it's suspenseful. If you feel that suspense, you're not going to care if it's a little bit longer. You're not going to feel those minutes. No. So I think they really kind of hastily pushed the love story along at the beginning and kind of hastily wrapped everything up at the end. So those are my only knocks in the movie. You don't get the smoothest Cary Grant in the world. You do at the beginning, but you definitely get the leading man that you want, and he's one of the best that's ever done it. Claude Rains is you can be a Claude Rains, do anything. You mentioned Lawrence of Arabia. I mean that he played an older diplomat in that movie who's pretty much sitting the entire film while holding a cane, and the guy's awesome. The way he delivers things, and the way he's just so nonchalant about stuff, but he uses his hands, his mannerisms, like the way he's looking right here, the looks on his face. He makes sure his expressions are perfect. So I mean, Claude Rains is awesome. And he's good in this movie. They don't quite, he doesn't quite utilize his talents and abilities as well as he could have. He uses them more as a piece to move along the movie, which is fine. But I could have seen other actors doing that role besides Claude Rains. But Claude Rains did do a great job with it. And this movie was pretty well received. And it should be. It's one of my favorite Hitchcock movies. It could be better. I don't think it's better than something like Vertigo or a movie like that, or North by Northwest. But
it's like it's like you're getting into what, as you started this whole thing off with, is you're getting like that first album by the band you love, but not their greatest work yet, because they're still putting it all together.
Yeah, so there's a few movies he did before this one, like Shadow of a Doubt with like Joseph Cotten. I thought that was a good movie, but the same thing, like that wasn't one of my favorite Hitchcock movies, but it was a good movie. But that's when he really started. This era of the early 40s is when he really started just like hitting his stride hard. And then everything he did after that was just fantastic.
Well, the movie is in the National Film Registry in the Library of Congress, because they said it's culturally, historically, and all of that significantly important. So that's pretty awesome.
One
also,
interesting thing about this too, real quick, one of the connections that this makes to the Zone of Interest, and I didn't realize it did until I started reading more about it. So IG Farben is the company that it's actually that's the group that these executives from that company, IG Farben, that are down in like Rio, and that's who like Claude Rains works for. They actually made the chemical canisters they used in concentration camps.
Oh,
to
geez.
gas them. So like they would ship it, like this is the company that would ship these to Auschwitz.
Oh, geez. I never even thought
that's a weird connection, but that's what this company was. I think Cary Grant mentions the company by name one time in the movie. If you don't catch the first time, you're not going to see it. He says IG Farben pretty quickly when he's trying to recruit her. But then I was like looking up about, I'm like, oh, there's a more in IG Farben. I realized what they actually did, and I was like, oh shit, that was a unintended connection to the Zone of Interest, actually.
Very, very, very awesome. Before we head out here, what have you seen over the summer at the movie theater? You see any movies at the theater recently?
I haven't seen a lot of new ones. I've been watching some flashback cinema movies and some Phasm events. You bring up Lawrence of Arabia. I went and saw that.
Oh,
back in. I sat through all 4 hours of it, and I watched that. I watched. Actually, it brings me. I'm going to show you a couple things here.
Yeah, please do.
I went and saw Lawrence of Arabia, and you brought up Lawrence of Arabia earlier. That is one of the movie posters I got recently here.
Oh, that's really awesome.
This is going in my collection.
Oh, that's gonna look cool on the wall.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that earlier. I was like, oh, that's exactly one of them I wanted to point out as well. And then one of the movies I did see over the summer, speaking of Alfred Hitchcock, and it's a movie I mentioned a little bit ago, was North by Northwest.
Oh, nice.
This is one of the giveaways they gave in Imagine when you watched the movie and came out of the theater.
Really?
One of these 11 by 17s.
It's funny you bring that up, because I finally went to Imagine about 2-3 weeks ago for the first time, because you said it was amazing, and it is amazing there.
It is nice. It is definitely nice. And watching a movie in a heated recliner makes you want to always watch movies in heated recliners.
Yeah, this ain't Cherville. This ain't AMC over there.
Hey, at the time though, Cherville was like
no, it was at one point.
So I did go to the Comic-Con in Chicago back in August.
Mm-hmm.
And I did score a couple of these. I scored a Royal Tenenbaums poster.
Ooh.
This guy who makes these was selling these for like $10 or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely in on that. And obviously, that's my favorite Wes Anderson film.
Nice.
And while I was there, I also got, and this is one of my hills I will die on things. I got a Roger Moore print. It's him and all the villains and all the Bond women from all the movies he was in.
Where's Mr. Walken at on there?
He is right here. I knew you're
there. He is.
Right
yes.
There. Push it right.
Slick back white hair. I love him in that role.
Yes, Max. So he is there, and that is my favorite Bond of all time. As we all know, Roger Moore.
Awesome.
And the last thing to show you was I got a nice autographed picture from Wayne Knight, and he even signed it for me. Nice game, pretty boy.
Ironic you should bring that up because 2 weeks ago we talked about a little Wayne Knight in Jurassic Park, who he did a good job in that movie. But it's awesome you saw him. Everything you just showed me right there, that could be the only things you can own on a wall, and you'd be like, "Wow, man, that's a fucking really cool wall."
Yeah, most of my wall downstairs is all my sports memorabilia, and I'm trying to get some more film ones. I have one of the Great Dictator out here. I think I showed you that one before. I have one of Metropolis. Not that the Star Wars sequels were all that great, episode 7, 8, 9, but they were all giveaways to it. Imagine when I saw them, so I have those. So I'm trying to build some more of that stuff as well. But it's a slow process, and it takes me forever to hang things.
What was I going to say here? The reason this all even just came about recently, because I'm flipping through the channels and please correct me if I get this wrong. Monsieur Verdot was on by
Monsieur Verdot
was on television, and immediately thought of you and our great Charlie Chaplin conversations. But before we head out here, I'm going to play this, and then I'll say something.
Who are you, please?
I'm the stenographer.
Well, then, you will please wait outside, please.
This next week, we are going to release, well, our favorite thing, our first thing that we did together, which was the Grand Hotel. Why don't you give a little background on that real quick, on that movie?
So Grand Hotel was made in 1934, I want to say. And it was one of the first movies that had an ensemble cast. So who you saw right there, that was a young Joan Crawford, who looked vastly different there than she did in her later years. But it had her, the other guy you saw right there, who was Precinct, that was Wallace Beery. And it also has John Barrymore in it, who was a big-time player then, and Greta Garbo, first and foremost. That was what most people wanted to go see, was Greta Garbo. You also had opposite John Barrymore, you had Lionel Barrymore as well. And so you had a handful of characters in that film, and it's basically all how their character stories interact while they're staying at the Grand Hotel in Berlin. So it was kind of one of the first movies of its kind where you had several main characters who had their own subplots, but how they all kind of tied together. So it was really cool how it was done. It's definitely a 30s movie. And I've said this before, sometimes the way that they talk in these films, people don't talk that way anymore.
No.
And it was still at a time where you were very, you're coming off the silent era still. It was like, it's 7 years off of, well, it might have been mid-1932. I'm not sure, but actually, I think it might have been mid-1932. So you're only like 5 years or so from silent movies. So there's still a lot of pantomiming going on. All the love, stuff. Everything was about the eyes, everything was about the movements and stuff like that. It was all that. So, and the things they said to each other, like you said, people don't speak that way anymore. That goes for a lot of movies in the 30s, especially in the 40s and stuff. Especially a lot of gangster movies and things you see like that. People don't talk that way anymore. But that's what's kind of cool about them. But yeah, that was fun doing the Grand Hotel.
But we're going to re-release that, and we'll have a couple more things coming up. But hopefully, maybe within the next 4 weeks or so, we can do this again.
Come up with something here, and
it's always good to talk movies with you, my man.
It's good to talk with you, and thank you. I appreciate the kind words as well.
No problem, man. Because recently you also sent me, which I thought was amazing. What was it? The Dark Knight Rises film shots from Pittsburgh. And honestly, when you sent that to me, that was something else where I was like, I remember when you would tell me all these cool locations and stuff like that. And next time we may share those photos and we'll go through some of those.
Yeah,
we're always going by really
whenever I go to so in the summer times, I've been trying to go to different baseball games, different cities. They're within driving distance so I can go on weekends and be back at work on Monday. Yeah. So, and then while I'm in those cities though, I'll try to find certain movie locations and take pictures and stuff of those. So it's an odd little habit of mine, but
very awesome, my man. Yeah. Very awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. This was really awesome talking about the Zone of Interest and Notorious. and even a little bit of Clue and some more cool stuff. We will be talking to you again soon. Thank you again, Adam. My name is Tony. This has been VHS, where we try to look a little bit deeper into movies to have you go and see them. So we will talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody.